You already know what time it is. Welcome back in to the NFL with AJL, episode 68. We're live on a Tuesday. You could have been anywhere else in the world, but you're right here tapped in with me on the show. Y'all make sure to get down in the comments, get in the chat. I want to see you guys interacting tonight. As always, we are on all platforms live where you can see us at the moment. Please make sure you like and share the stream, the show, wherever you may be watching. Subscribe on YouTube as well. Hit the bell so you never miss a post. Never forget that you can actually go over to the YouTube channel where we're live right now. Donate directly through the chat with a super thanks, a super chat, whatever you'd like to do to support the show. No complaints about any donations, or if you want to personally donate to me, get at me on social media and we can work something out there as well. Hope you guys have had a great March, a great week so far. I know it's early on this year. Again, is continuing to fly by us, and you have plenty of options out there. So thank you for choosing the NFL with AJL as we're live with episode 68. Free agency is continuing to roll right along. Keenan Allen, Justin Fields, Patrick Queen, Calvin Ridley, moves all over the league. Got a packed show tonight, so I'm not going to waste any more time. As we do get into the show, though, please make sure you hit that QR code, scan it in the top corner of the screen, or it's down in the description at the NFL with AJL, hashtag the NFL with AJL. If you can't find me, you're simply not looking hard enough. That's where all of our social media and podcast content is. Let's go ahead and jump right into it, as I'm going to start off the top with ranking where all the free agent running backs ended up signing. A little bit of a shakeup here. I've already talked about Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley on episode 67 when I had Bryce Lewis on. That's going to be 1A, 1B for me. Whether you want to put Saquon or Derrick Henry, I don't really care. Feels like Saquon has more of the upside. Derrick Henry has the better deal. Both of them go to teams that are going to be competing within their respective conferences. And we'll go from the 2 to the 7 as we had Joe Mixon to the Texans, Aaron Jones to the Vikings, Austin Eckler to the Commanders, and a few more. At number 2, I'm going to put Joe Mixon to the Texans. The Texans have been making some good moves this offseason, whether it's been here with Joe Mixon. Obviously, they brought Danielle Hunter in. We're going to talk about that specific move later on in the show. But Joe Mixon to the Texans is going to be a great addition for them. CJ Stroud's going to have that comfort of having Joe Mixon in the backfield. And we know that CJ was already a solid quarterback last year, but I do believe the Texans could improve at running the football some with actually getting that star back in the backfield for them. And, of course, I don't have the Texans depth chart with who they have in the backfield at the moment. Going to pull that up. And they're dealing with, obviously, Dameon Pierce, who isn't bad. They've also got J.J. Taylor and Jared Dokes as well, it looks like. So clearly Joe Mixon's going to be the RB1 there. He pops right into a system that needed some running back assistance within the offense. And I think Joe Mixon could potentially go on and have some of his best years. He's already had some great years, multiple 1,000-yard seasons, some double-digit touchdown seasons as well with Cincinnati. And when you put Joe Mixon with the Texans, it's just going to add another element to that offense. Again, that comfort for CJ Stroud, going to take the pressure off some certain parts. And I believe Joe Mixon is kind of like that Alvin Kamara, or I think a better comparison, that Christian McCaffrey light, like an Austin Eckler, who can come out of the backfield, whether it's on a sweep, whether it's on a zone read. They're going to run in multiple different aspects or be able to receive the ball. Number 3, Josh Jacobs to the Green Bay Packers. And this does feel like an upgrade from Aaron Jones. I'm a fan of Aaron Jones. I think he's a very solid running back, also kind of like Joe Mixon and Christian McCaffrey as well, just not at that level of Christian McCaffrey, but can run the football in multiple scenarios, can be a very solid running back, a receiving back as well. And when you put Josh Jacobs with the Packers, knowing that he had those multiple 1,000-yard seasons under the roughness of Josh McDaniels, with having Derek Carr as his quarterback, with a lot of that controversy and instability that it feels like we've seen with the Raiders and coming out of the season that they had last year, knowing that he hasn't been in the best build and has still succeeded, I can't wait to see what he does with a team here like the Packers, who's coming off of a great season. We know what Jordan Love just was. Aaron Jones was solid there. But again, I believe this is an upgrade, probably more on the rushing aspect. He can still receive the ball as well. But I think Aaron Jones, who has departed, is better in that aspect. But I love the plugging in here of Josh Jacobs. Just going to provide more of that rush yards per game, more of those rushing touchdowns, more of that physical wear on the defense. And that's what Josh Jacobs is. I feel like he's one of the few actual between the tackles, ton of carries on the season, bell cow back out there, one of the few left, of course, next to Derrick Henry. At number 4, I'm going to do Aaron Jones to the Minnesota Vikings. Aaron Jones goes from the Packers over to the Vikings. He stays in the division rival. And the reason I have this one so low, it might feel low for some of you. The Vikings have to figure out what's going on with their quarterback. Yes, they've got Aaron Jones. They've got Justin Jefferson. They've got TJ Hawkinson. They've got Jordan Addison. They've got Kevin O'Connell, who did very well in his season there and is going to continue to support this team and push them along in his coaching tenure. Aaron Jones will more than likely succeed at a high level in this offense. We know that Dalvin Cook just came from here. We know that Alexander Mattison just left this organization as well. And both of those guys always had good production. We know that Alexander Mattison was in there backing up Dalvin Cook. And I'm going to say Aaron Jones is a fall off from Dalvin Cook, but I do think he is an upgrade from Alexander Mattison. So shout out to the Vikings for going out and getting him, because Aaron Jones is still capable of being one of the top backs in the league. I don't know if I would say, 3 to 5. I think he could flirt with that 5 spot, maybe around the 6 or the 7 spot as well. But Aaron Jones, very solid pickup here for the Minnesota Vikings. Number 5, DeAndre Swift to the Bears. This might feel a little high for some of you, but I feel better about the Bears than I do the Commanders and the Titans, which is kind of a sneak peek at the next 2 teams that are coming up here for the rankings on where all these NFL free agent running backs went. DeAndre Swift just had a solid season with the Philadelphia Eagles, over 1,000 yards rushing, was able to keep that up from what Miles Sanders did in Philadelphia. And of course, we see the Eagles go out and grab Saquon Barkley. And most of the league would probably take Saquon over DeAndre Swift, maybe not for the amount of money, because we know how Saquon has struggled a little bit with the health. But DeAndre Swift just had a solid season. I always thought DeAndre Swift was a fairly good running back with the Detroit Lions. They were just able to ship him out. Obviously, we see the trade. I believe it was within the draft, and DeAndre Swift goes on and has some of his best year as a running back and as a player. And it's not to say that he wasn't good in Detroit, but Detroit wasn't necessarily setting him up for success and putting him in those right situations to succeed as much of a level as he did in Philly. Now, of course, Philly has that offensive line that not many people in the NFL, they are missing Jason Kelce, not many people in the NFL are going to be able to, to hang with. But I think DeAndre Swift to the Bears, knowing that Keenan Allen's coming in, knowing that it is a lock for Caleb Williams to come in now, Justin Fields is out of town. They bring in Gerald Everett. This is going to be a good piece for this offense. At number 6, give me Austin Eckler to the Commanders. Feels low for me because of who Austin Eckler is as a player. Again, he is that Joe Mixon. He is that Aaron Jones, kind of a lesser version of the Christian McCaffreys of the league that can be that dual threat back. Austin Eckler, over the last 3 seasons, outside of quarterbacks, has led the NFL in scrimmage touchdowns. He's got 40. And you look between rushing, between receiving, how he's able to be clutch in certain games. He's one of the best dual threat backs in the NFL. But I'm nervous because Cliff Kingsbury is his offensive coordinator and Dan Quinn is his head coach. Who's the quarterback right now? Sam Howell, I believe, is now a Seattle Seahawk. The Commanders are going to be in the runnings for a quarterback. We know that they pick towards the tops of the league. So will they go after a Drake May? Will they possibly trade up to 1 and get a Caleb Williams? Don't believe that's the thing. Is Jaden Daniels going to be there? Do we take a chance on a Michael Penix? I believe, Jaden Daniels, Drake May is probably going to be that quarterback to pick for them. I would love to have Austin Eckler to the Commanders higher on this list, but it does worry me with his head coach and his offensive coordinator. And at number 7, Tony Pollard to the Titans. Now, the Titans are starting to stack up. I think Tony Pollard's going to have some nice compliments with what we're going to be able to see from Will Levis in a full year, too, with DeAndre Hopkins and now, of course, Calvin Ridley on the outside as well. We're going to talk about that Calvin Ridley move towards the end of the show. But Tony Pollard comes in to replace Derrick Henry. We know the Titans have been great at running the football over the last half decade. Tony Pollard is not Derrick Henry, but he is respectable back. I think he has that capability to show that he's a running back one. He's probably going to get his most carries, his biggest workload here as the RB1. We know he was warming up to some of that with the Dallas Cowboys as Zeke Elliott moved out and as he was the running back, and who seemed to have the hot hand at times when Ezekiel Elliott wasn't producing or he was not in the game due to whatever reason. Brian Callahan is here. That rushing scheme is still here. There's still some key pieces here. Obviously, Derrick Henry missing is a big one. Of course, Mike Vrabel missing is another one. But Tony Pollard's going to find success in this offense. It might not be the prettiest, which is why I have it down lower here on the list. But ranking all the NFL free agent running backs for the shakeup in 2024 NFL free agency, 1A, 1B is Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry. Number 2, Joe Mixon to the Texans. Number 3, Josh Jacobs to the Packers. 4, Aaron Jones to the Vikings. 5, DeAndre Swift to the Bears. 6, Austin Eckler to the Commanders. And 7, Tony Pollard to the Titans. Bruns, what's up, man? Hey, babe. Appreciate you watching my show while you're at work. She's out there making that hard-earned money, and I'm over here on a podcast that isn't making anything yet. Now, jokes aside, we know that we're working up to that point, but appreciate the support again from you, Bruns, and from you, babe. Taylor Mobley over there in the chat. Justin Fields was traded to the Pittsburgh Steelers for a 6th-round pick that actually becomes a 4th-round pick if he plays 51% of the snaps for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I didn't expect Justin Fields to go here. Not at all. There's stories out there. We don't know who the teams are, but apparently Justin Fields turned down 4 other trade offers to go to the Pittsburgh Steelers. He knew what Mike Tomlin's capable of. He knows what the Steelers' culture is. Justin Fields has been scarred by the lack of head coaching, weapons, defensive support, and front office capability since he was selected 11th overall in the draft years ago. And Justin Fields' market, although, albeit he is to blame some, what can you say Justin Fields really had? We saw them bring in DJ Moore, and Justin Fields doesn't necessarily break out as a passer, but DJ Moore comes in and has a 1,000-yard season. He is the unquestionable number 1 target for Justin Fields. And Justin Fields has been scarred by all this. So he wanted to go to a culture that is sound. Yes, maybe they haven't had a playoff win in a while. Maybe they haven't won a Super Bowl in a while. But they're the Pittsburgh Steelers. They still have that legendary, professional, no BS approach pedigree, and he wants to be under that Mike Tomlin leadership. The Bears did right by him in this aspect, and I appreciate Chicago for doing that because Justin Fields, we know that, again, it's been tough for him. Okay, he hasn't had the best roll of the dice in Chicago. Chicago hasn't done the best thing to surround him. So they said, you know what? We're going to let you take control of this a little bit. Justin Fields' agent, his representation came in and said he wants to go to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Bears did right by him, and that is where he sent them again for a 6th-round pick. It becomes a 4th-round pick if Justin Fields plays the majority, 51% of the offensive snaps, respectfully, at the quarterback position. So, if based off this, if I had to guess who made trade offers potentially for Justin Fields, I think you take a look at 8, maybe 9 teams here. I think the Vikings are one. We know the roster they're working with right now. Hawkinson, Addison, Jettas, Aaron Jones, Kevin O'Connell. Defense could be better. The Titans, they've got Calvin Ridley. They got DeAndre Hopkins. They've got Tony Pollard. There's weapons there. Brian Callahan is probably going to succeed being the OC from the Bengals. The Falcons, of course, is an obvious one. We discussed that. The Seattle Seahawks, I'll say. I know Pete Carroll's not in there anymore. Mike McDonald as the DC is now in as the DC from the Ravens is now in as the head coach for the Seattle Seahawks, but there is DK Metcalf, there is Tyler Lockett, there is Zach Charbonnet, there is Kenneth Walker. Weapons in these teams, and these teams need a quarterback. The Vikings, Will Levis is there with the Titans, but would it really hurt to have Justin Fields as a backup? Not necessarily. The Falcons before they signed Kirk Cousins. Just talking about potential landing spots. The Seahawks, we don't know what's up with that yet. Is Geno Smith still going to be the one to actually be quarterback? Could the Seahawks be looking for a quarterback? We know what Geno Smith has been a little bit lately. The Raiders, they just let Jimmy G go. I can't remember who Gardner Minshew. So Gardner Minshew is going to get the starting job there. 2 years, $25 million. But do you really believe Gardner Minshew is it? I think we all know he is a bridge. And of course, Justin Fields still has to prove himself, but Josh Jacobs did just leave, but they just got Christian Wilkins for defensive help. They've got Devontae Adams. They've got Hunter Renfrow. Maybe a little less weapons there. I also think the Broncos could have been a team to come in and make an offer as well. They just got rid of Russell Wilson. Of course, Jerry Jeudy just left town. Cortland Sutton's still there. So maybe not the Broncos because they don't have a ton of weapons. And the the Patriots. So let me go with that one, and then I'll go to the next one. The New England Patriots, we know they need a quarterback. Gerard Mayo, very player-friendly. He was talking about how they're going to spend some cash. They've made some signings in free agency. They have a very high pick in the NFL draft as well, which is a reason why they could not have been a trade caller. But still, to have Justin Fields as the backup to possibly mentor from somebody, mentor from a rookie, not necessarily, because that's more than likely going to be the case with the New England Patriots. And they did trade Mac Jones to the Jacksonville Jaguars. And then the Washington Commanders, again, we know that they have a higher pick as well, but they've got Scary Terry. They do lose Antonio Gibson to the aforementioned Patriots. They did lose Curtis Samuel to the Buffalo Bills. We know that they, shelled out some of their talent also. So not the most weapons necessarily with the Patriots, with the Broncos, with the Commanders, or even the Raiders, but those teams were quarterback needy. I would have liked to think that the Saints, because I think the Saints now getting rid of Jameis Winston. He's with the Browns. We're going to talk about that also later in the episode. Nathan Peterman or Justin Fields as your backup. I think every Saints fan would have been okay with shipping out a 6, maybe escalating it to a 4th for the backup capability that Justin Fields could have. Now, would I want him under Dennis Allen? No. Would I want him probably learning from Derek Carr? No. Carr's a veteran. He's good, but he's not great. And we've had plenty of discussions about Derek Carr here on this show. But more than anything, Justin Fields, again, wanting to go to that Steelers culture, wanted to be with Mike Tomlin. He needs to be mentored right now. He's scarred. He's broken. He's a disappointment as a number 11 overall pick. And that's not being rude. That's just what the consensus is on him right now. I still think Justin Fields can be great. I know what Justin Fields was after he left Georgia, how he played at Ohio State, playing in a national championship against Trevor Lawrence. And if he would have had more around him, like some of these other rookie quarterbacks have been supported, like the Texans just gave us a perfect display with CJ Stroud, he could be in a better playing light and be in a better situation. But now he's going to get to learn from Russell Wilson, who is a Super Bowl winning quarterback, who's been to multiple Super Bowls, who's been to the big game, who is under the tough coaching of Pete Carroll, who's now going to be under Mike Tomlin. It is just more structure and validity in terms of surrounding yourself with higher achieving people. And Justin Fields is taking it back to the basics, taking it on the nose, and he's going to go here and be mentored by Russell Wilson, learn how to read defenses better, learn how to maybe not have the same personality as Russ, because we know the kind of stories that are out on that. I think Russ is just being himself, but he's going to get a chance to become smarter here. And I think really there couldn't have been a better destination for that case as to why Justin Fields probably picked it. And Mike Tomlin already came out early on and said, hey, look, Justin, you're the backup. Russ, you're the starter. Taking that pressure out of the situation. There's not going to be any quarterback competition because we know they bring Russell Wilson in. Kenny Pickett gets traded to the Eagles. They bring in Justin Fields. And there was silly talks about a quarterback battle between Russell Wilson and Kenny Pickett. And I said, look, if Russ loses a quarterback battle to Kenny Pickett, who we know isn't it, I don't know how much more I could defend Russell Wilson anymore. But Mike Tomlin went ahead and put the standard out there. You're going to learn from Russell Wilson. And I like how he's being upfront with that. I like how he's also taking that pressure off Russ, because Russ should be a starter. This backup talk is absurd. This wash talk is absurd. Wasn't done right by the Broncos. You be my starter. Justin Fields, you're going to learn from him. And again, I'm a fan of that. I think Justin Fields has a really good chance to take advantage of it. But when will Justin Fields possibly start again in the NFL? This year is possible if Russell Wilson gets hurt or if he plays bad, whatever the case is. If he's not able to play, Justin Fields will be in. But I think it's possibly next year, maybe 2 years from now. It just depends on how the season plays out with Russell Wilson. Of course, we've heard some stories of the Steelers' plan to sign a long-term deal with Russell Wilson at the end of the year, but I think that's jumping the gun way too much. Don't let that $1.2 million get to your head. Just ask the Broncos and about the $85 million in dead cap that they're having to pay for him. But I think it is really going to depend on how this year goes. Could a team possibly come in and swipe Justin Fields before the trade deadline? Could they come in and get him next offseason? We don't know, but I think it's safe to say, again, barring injury or Russ just playing awful like the Nathaniel Hackett Broncos days, Justin Fields is not going to be starting for this season, and it'll just depend on what next season brings about. The Chicago Bears getting this in the trade package for Justin Fields, it bites at Chicago Bears fans because he was a number 1 pick. You traded up for him. You moved assets for him. I said that they stole the draft at the time that they did it, and they took him with the 11th overall pick. Now they shell him out for a 6th rounder. If he plays 51% of snaps, which I don't believe he will, maybe the Steelers can work that out somehow. But again, I don't see how Russ isn't doing what he's supposed to do over there and taking all of those snaps, being QB1 for the entire 17 and possibly more going forward if they make the playoffs. It's going to be a 6th round pick. But this is what I was saying also. The Chicago Bears waited too long to move Justin Fields. That's why they got the 6th round pick. Everybody was flying off the shelf. Baker Mayfield was getting $115 million. Kirk Cousins was signing a $180 million deal. We see all these quarterbacks popping around in the NFL. Gardner Minshew, 2 years, $25 million. And it was crickets for Justin Fields. All these quarterbacks were flying around in free agency, which does show you that maybe the Bears, from their perspective, to maximize the value, move off him earlier, maybe by the trade deadline in this season, let him play good, give him a softer part of the schedule. But none of that happened, and they were stuck with Justin Fields. And I'd love to know, I'm sure stories will come out, what these other 4 teams actually offered to go and get Justin Fields. I would love to know what those teams actually offered up, because depending And again, they wanted to do right by him, but I would love to know what some of these trade packages could have actually been for Justin Fields. I want to see y'all down in the chat in the comments. Let me know what you think of the running back rankings so far, and also Justin Fields traded to the Steelers. Keenan Allen traded to the Bears for a 4th-round pick overall. The Chargers went in and asked Keenan Allen to take a pay cut after coming off of his best year. He was on pace for a 1,700-yard, 12-touchdown season. Of course, he doesn't play a few games this season, ends up with about 1,300 yards or so. And we see what Keenan Allen has been capable of over the years. I understand he's missed 11 games over the last 2 years, so that is cause for concern from some things. But Keenan Allen said it in a post-game presser. He's like, I'm not taking a pay cut. It's not going to happen. I know I wasn't healthy the whole year, but I just came off my best year. And I've talked about season after season after season of Keenan Allen being healthy to see what he can actually do in a full 16, 17 game stretch, and having Justin Herbert have him around for a full part of the season. I'm always saying Keenan Allen's got to be healthy. Joey Bosa's got to be healthy. Austin Eckler's got to be healthy. And, Keenan Allen and Austin Eckler have both left the Los Angeles Chargers. And, it's just seeing Keenan Allen go for the 4th. We're going to talk about the compensation in a moment, but I hated to see him leave LA because he's been there for a decade. He's one of the best receivers in the league. He's maybe the best route runner, if not one of the best, next to Stephon Diggs, next to Devontae Adams. And just a overall, great to borderline elite receiver if he's not that already. Keenan Allen has proved over the last decade what he's capable of here in the league. And I understand where the Chargers are coming from. He's missed 11 games over the last 2 years. He was injury riddled in the first half of his career real bad. And, even though the salary cap just went up, maybe they're feeling a little regretful because Quentin Johnston didn't produce on anything, and that's money invested into a wide receiver. Again, I wish Keenan Allen could have stayed, but the Chargers had to make that business decision. So since 2019, talking about Keenan Allen's production, he's 12th in yards, 13th in touchdowns, all for wide receivers, 12th in receiving yards, 13th in receiving touchdowns, 5th in catches, 4th in targets, 8th in receiving yards per game. So Keenan Allen produces with some of the best of them. Of course, I dropped that stat. Most receiving yards since 2019. I think I just had it right here. Yep, here we go. Okay. So Keenan Allen is, well, do I want to go into that part? No, I don't want to hold up the show with that part, but I was going to go through and talk about, some of the receivers he was ahead, behind, whatever the case is, but he's had all of those stats since 2019. So he's producing. He's in the top 10 to 15 of receivers over the last 5 or 6 years in terms of all types of production. And now the Bears have DJ Moore, they have Keenan Allen, they have DeAndre Swift, they signed Gerald Everett, who is, isn't a big signing, but he's still an offensive guy. They signed Cole Kmet. Cole Kmet is still there. Roschon Johnson coming in the draft last year from Texas. I think Roschon Johnson will be able to get more of a workload this year than just a few hundred rushing yards and, the few carries it feels like that he got, especially being behind DeAndre Swift, and this new staff that's coming in, or some of the new staff that's coming in for the Chicago Bears. The compensation for Keenan Allen does feel a little fair. Maybe you would have liked a 3rd rounder. I don't believe he's worth a 1st-round pick, maybe a 2nd-round pick, but the X factor, the glaring part is he's missed 11 games over the last 2 years. He's missed 14 games, I believe, specifically over the last 3 years. And you have to be careful because it's been, it's felt like season after season, whether it's a long stretch of games like it kind of was this year, whether it was like the year before that, like you have to understand that your best ability is availability. And if you're not showing that, then it's going to be harder for you to, actually get paydays in the NFL, actually get teams to commit that financial security to you and keep you within, the same uniform that you want to be in. So I think a 4th rounder was fair considering all things. Yes, he was on pace for a 1,700-yard season, but on pace and knowing what he's capable of and the potential doesn't amount to the fact that he has had injury history, and that's always going to bite you in the NFL. So I really do feel like a 4th rounder was enough. Maybe they could have got a 3rd, but Keenan Allen was like, I'm not taking a pay cut. the Chargers just, let Mike Williams go to the Jets as well. So I mean, who is really going to be able to be here? The Chargers had a tough decision to make because the cap was huge. I think they saved about 21, 22 million after letting Keenan Allen get traded, so he's not on the cap anymore versus they would have had about 5 million overall in cap space if he would have stayed. Now they have about 27. But does Keenan Allen get better or get worse now that he's with the Chicago Bears? I think it's either going to be the same level of production or a dip off, because even if you're going from Justin Herbert, Caleb Williams, everyone's going to take Herbert still. You got Harbaugh or not Matt Nagy, Matt Eberflus. You've got Harbaugh or Matt Eberflus, and then you're going to just start looking back and forth at the coordinators and really take your pick as to, and the surrounding offenses, and take your pick as to which one you think is going to produce better. It's going to be some growing pains in Chicago, I believe. I do still think he could be that 12 to 1400 yard receiver. Caleb Williams is going to love him, barring that he does get drafted there. Again, there is DeAndre Swift, there is DJ Moore over there to give some of those options and those weapons to the quarterback. But I believe Keenan Allen's best days are either right now or slightly past him. I don't believe they're coming. And that's not in any slight, because Keenan Allen is, again, one of the best wide receivers in this league, but it is going to be some growing pains as he goes to Chicago. Hollywood Brown to the Kansas City Chiefs on a 1-year, $7 million deal. And I honestly couldn't be happier for Hollywood Brown to actually get this chance to reignite his career here. We understand that Hollywood Brown, when he first came into the league, had the crazy first rookie game, over 200 yards receiving, 2 touchdowns, I believe it was. But then if you look for the rest of 2019, he only put up about 300 or 400 yards and only about 5 more touchdowns for the rest of the year. He's only got one 1,000-yard receiving season under him. The last 2 years he has spent with the Cardinals, but he was one of Lamar Jackson's better targets. Of course, there was a Rashad Bateman and a Devin Duvernay and, Zay Flowers and Mark Andrews that were there and kind of shuffled in and out between him. But when the deal was made, he was sent over to the Cardinals, which I felt like was going to be a good target for Kyler Murray. But Kyler did find some use in him for sure, but I do believe his better time was going to be, with the Baltimore Ravens. And now he has the blessing of saying he's not only had Lamar Jackson throw him the football, who is, a legend in the making, but now Patrick Mahomes, who is already in that top 5, 6, 10 all-time conversation, whatever you want to spin it, for Patrick Mahomes. And I'm glad that he gets the chance to revitalize his career, because he is a speedster. He might not have the best hands. We've caught him, caught him trying to kind of shimmy the ball into his body, catch with his body, not be, a full-on hands receiver. We know he's a speedster, though. He doesn't run the crispest routes, but I believe under Andy Reid, with the arm talent of Patrick Mahomes, we're going to see Hollywood Brown come out here and maybe put up top 8 to 10 or 12, touchdowns total in the league, receiving yards, catches. Like, he's going to get his workload over here in Kansas City, and I'm very, very excited for him about it. He does have that chance to be that number 1 target for Patrick Mahomes, of course, behind Travis Kelce, who is really a wide receiver just playing the tight end position. We all know how all teams aspire to have Travis Kelce as their tight end, or a prototypical build of one in Travis Kelce. And I'm just glad that Kansas City really got themselves a solid wide receiver, because, again, before the season started, we saw in the opener when the Lions beat them, I'm like, man, I bet you the Chiefs really wish they would have went and got DeAndre Hopkins, was the name of last year. We were wondering if Mike Evans was going to possibly go to the Kansas City Chiefs this year. I think that would have been a great move. We see them take Rashee Rice. We see them take Sky Moore. Rashee Rice has been solid. We see MVS plug in and out of there. And Rashee Rice has really been the big pop, but it was good for Kansas City to get a solid number 2 wide receiver. And some people might disagree with me. They might not think Hollywood Brown is everything that he's cracked up to be, but I've seen the potential of him. I've seen the tape of him, whether he was with Baltimore, which was his better days again, whether he was with the Arizona Cardinals. But again, I think Mahomes is really going to have a solid target here in Hollywood Brown. I believe his stat line, I think it'd be about 1,200 yards. If he hits double-digit touchdowns, it doesn't shock me, because, again, this isn't Tyreek Hill, but he has the speed to almost imitate that Tyreek Hill aspect, to not replicate, but imitate. You'll listen to my words there. The Tyreek Hill aspect that, the Kansas City Chiefs have had. Again, about 11 to 1,200 yards. I think at the minimum 7 touchdowns. And I could see about 100 catches or so. I really could for Hollywood Brown. That'll be a big workload for him, but He's never caught 100 passes in a season, 46, 58, 91, 67, 51, going from 2019 to 2023, first 3 years with the Ravens, last 2 years with the Arizona Cardinals. But I'm excited. I'm very excited to see what this brings again, not only for Hollywood Brown, but for the Kansas City Chiefs and just what it's going to do for their offense, because it's about time that they get another solid receiver in there to really supplement somehow for that Tyreek Hill departure. Jerry Jeudy traded to the Cleveland Browns for a 5th and a 6th round pick. As much as I hate to say it, the compensation seems really fair for Jerry Jeudy. Of course, it could have been better, but the Broncos are rebuilding at the moment. And we know that Jerry Jeudy he never got to be the wide receiver that he was drafted to be. He needed to stay healthy. And that wasn't ever necessarily the case. We saw his rookie year. We saw a few years in his, I think 4 or 5 year career so far that have been hampered by injuries. And whether it's been Drew Lock or Russell Wilson or any of these other quarterbacks that have kind of been a plug and play that the Broncos have been searching for ever since the departure of Peyton Manning in 2016, it hasn't been enough that clearly convinced the Broncos that he could stay. And if the team isn't convinced that you're going to be an asset to them, then we know that the NFL is a business and they're going to move right along with you. But now that he's with the Cleveland Browns, he is going to be next to Amari Cooper. He is going to have Deshaun Watson, who knows, maybe Jameis Winston, Dorian Thompson-Robinson in there to throw him the football. But hopefully Nick Chubb and Deshaun Watson both do come back healthy, because Kevin Stefanski has proven to be a great coach. We know he can be a great coach. He is a 2-time coach of the year for a reason. I did think last year should have meant to DeMeco Ryans, but 4 starting quarterbacks, 12 wins. Yes, you get blown out of the first round of the playoffs, but that's got to be deserving of something without question. And I do think that Jerry Jeudy will reach the heights of his career. His bigger days are ahead of him. Yes, it was nice to be over with the Denver Broncos, but things never really caught steam. They never really caught fire over there, no matter who the quarterback was throwing to him. And Jerry Jeudy coming out of college, we understand that Jerry Jeudy can route you up. He's got solid hands. He can be a technician. He can run. What is it that they call it? The route tree. We know that he can be a technician of the route tree, and that was prevalent for him in college. I'm trying to blank. I always confuse. Damn it! Now see, I'm losing the receiver name. Jerry Jeudy. Was it Oklahoma or Alabama? Come on now. Alabama. Okay. CeeDee Lamb was at Oklahoma. Jerry Jeudy was at Alabama. Got you. But yeah, I think the heights of his career are really on the way up for him. Again, it is going to depend on that quarterback situation, but Kevin Stefanski's shown that he can run a solid offense. And if you do get the Nick Chubb and the Deshaun Watsons of the world back healthy, hell, even if it maybe is Jameis Winston and a little bit of what DTR showed us last year, there's going to be weapons. There's going to be receiving weapons. There's going to be guys who can grow. And that's what Jerry Jeudy's going to do. You know that he hasn't had the heights of the production again that he was drafted out of Alabama to produce, and what he was doing at Alabama, what he was expected to do at the Broncos. And injuries will do that to you. But if he can stay healthy, and this offense showed last year that they can have production out of, like Amari Cooper quietly had a good year his first year with the Browns. And people really didn't expect that. Amari Cooper has been a good asset with the Cleveland Browns, and they wanted to double down here on the wide receiver aspect. 1, 2, 3. Oh, no, wait. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Was it 6, 7, 8, 9, 10? Okay. After we hit this topic, we're going to get into a break. Sorry, I should have ironed that out a little bit before, but I'm going to have to catch a break in here at some point. We got about 10 or 11 topics. Aaron Donald retires after 10 seasons, and he actually told Sean McVay right after they lost to the Lions in the wild card that he was going to retire. He texted Sean McVay and said, "I'm full." And Sean McVay said, "Hey, man, rightfully so. You should be. You played for 10 years. You were the best at your position, arguably all 10 years. Yes, even as your rookie year. Yes, even in your year last year where you were a little hurt, and this year as you were recovering." Aaron Donald made the double team known. He made the triple team known. If you could not stop Aaron Donald, you really did not have a good chance at beating the San Diego, or not San Diego, the St. Louis slash now the Los Angeles Rams. Lord, I almost said Chargers. Aaron Donald as the defensive tackle over the last 10 years in the NFL. Let's just go ahead and say it. He's the best defensive tackle there's ever been. His accolades, his stats, the way that he was actually able to play at the highest level for a decade straight, steps away at the end of his game, at the end of his career, still playing at a high level. Maybe not his best. I believe his best years are just a little bit past him, but Aaron Donald still had to be respected. He could still get you 10, 15 sacks in a year. He could still wreck a game. He's still going to require that double team. Aaron Donald is just the second defensive tackle ever to reach 100 sacks along with John Randall. He's the fastest defensive tackle to ever reach 100 sacks. He led the NFL in sacks in 2018 with 20 and a half. He joins J.J. Watt and Lawrence Taylor, who is regarded as one of the best, if not the best, defensive player of all time. To win 3 defensive players of the year, J.J. Watt, Lawrence Taylor, Aaron Donald, only 3 people can say that they've won 3 DPOYs in their career. We know Aaron Donald could have easily had 5. We saw the voter fatigue to where he could have had really 4 years in a row. He won 2, missed a season, ended up winning another one. He was 10 for 10 in Pro Bowl selections in the 10 years that he played. He was an 8-time first-team All-Pro, including 7 All-Pro first teams in a row at one point. The Super Bowl champion, we know that he also had the play on Joe Burrow at the end of the game to basically secure it. And then he's going down the sideline, going down the field, tapping his finger, winning the Super Bowl at home. And we knew that it was time for Aaron Donald to get that ring. We also heard about the speculations of Aaron Donald retiring as well. He ended up holding off for 2 seasons because, it kind of, it felt like the Rams, we didn't expect, I don't know if we ever expect teams to have Super Bowl hangovers. They had one of the worst Super Bowl hangovers we ever saw. And then he gave it another shot. And the Rams lost in the wild card to the team that went to the NFC Championship and had every chance to go to the Super Bowl. So Aaron Donald really gave it all he had. And he said that on his Instagram post. For 10 years, 365 days a year, everything he had invested in him was dedicated to football. Now he's going to go spend time with his wife. Now he's going to go spend time with his 4 children. Between 2015 and 2021, he only had less than 11 sacks. He only had less than 11 sacks at one point in that span. He only had 4 seasons without double-digit sacks. 2 seasons he finished with 8. One of those this prior year. 1 season he had finished at 9. If you think those stats are crazy, open your ears for this one to really understand how Aaron Donald was just absolutely unstoppable. He's a damn alien. He is on another planet. According to ESPN Analytics and NFL Next Gen stats, over the past 5 years, which ironically was after his league-leading 20.5 sack season, Aaron Donald was double-teamed a league-high 1,510 times, which is 40.5%, as a pass rusher. That was 135 more double teams than any other player. He beat 186 of those double teams within 2.5 seconds. Just sit in your head for a second and count to 2.5 and think about everything that's going on around you as an NFL quarterback. You got 2 guys on Aaron Donald. He's breaking that double team in that amount of time. Just go ahead and think about it and imagine having to process everything on the field, because once 2.5 seconds is up, even if you got 2 guys on Aaron Donald, he's breaking through that damn line. He beat 186 of those 1,510 double teams over that 5-year period within 2.5 seconds. That was 51 more than any other player. Ironically, Chris Jones was second. He had 135 of those double teams beat within 2.5 seconds. Aaron Donald had 117 pressures on those double teams, which was 33 more than the second place gentleman that was on the list. Over the past 5 years, again, after his 20.5 sack season, the NFL average pass rush win rate against a single pass blocker was 17% for a qualified rusher. Aaron Donald posted an 18% pass rush win rate against double teams in that span, making him better against 2 pass blockers as one person than the average pass rusher was against over 1 pass blocker over the last 5 years. I'll say that again. Aaron Donald was better against a double team in that 5-year span than any other person on average was against a regular one-on-one trench matchup. According to ESPN stats and information research, Donald is one of 2 defensive players since the 1970 AFL-NFL merger to earn a Pro Bowl selection in each of their first 10 seasons, alongside none other than Lawrence Taylor. Aaron Donald and Barry Sanders are the only players in NFL history to play at least 10 seasons and get selected to the Pro Bowl in each season. According to the Elias Sports Bureau, Barry Sanders also played 10 seasons, retiring in 1998. 8. That's everything that needs to be said about Aaron Donald. To know that that man was double teamed more than anybody in that 5-year span after he put the league on notice with 20 and a half sacks, which hasn't been done very often. He was beating double teams in less time than everybody else was by a good stretch, by at least, I don't know, 369, by about 20%. He had a 20% advantage on everyone else behind him. He is better against double teams in that 5-year span than people in a one-on-one matchup in the NFL. Only the third player ever to win 3 Defensive Player of the Years. He's a Super Bowl champion. Fastest defensive tackle to ever reach 100 sacks. Just the second defensive tackle to ever reach 100 sacks again when John Randall. 7 All-Pros in a row. Only less than 11 sacks one time between 2015 and 2021, and only 4 seasons overall without double-digit sacks. Give the flowers to Aaron Donald. Lay it all out there for him. He's the best defensive tackle to ever do it. And all quarterbacks league-wide, worldwide, will be grateful that Aaron Donald has retired from the NFL. Quarterbacks' fingers are safe. Their bodies are going to be a little less crushed. And he won't be there to raise hell and wreak havoc like he did for a decade straight, 10 straight years at the top of his game, best at his position. And I'm grateful that he won a Super Bowl. Just so you know how badly Aaron Donald wanted to leave, he gave up $33.5 million guaranteed to retire, to hang it up, still playing at a high level, which Aaron Donald's got money. Okay. He's got it. He's probably going to get a lot of off-field stuff, good promotions. We see what Gronk and Travis Kelce and some other retired players are able to get in terms of TV deals, commercials, sponsorships. Aaron Donald will get plenty of that. Thank you for everything you did in the NFL, Aaron Donald. It was such a pleasure watching you. I'm grateful to know that I got to watch one of the best players of all time play at the highest level for a decade straight, and I got to see most of his tape. What's up, Megan? Good to see you on the show. Thank you for jumping in. This has been episode 68 of the NFL with AJL. I appreciate everybody jumping into the show tonight. Please make sure to like and share the show wherever you may be watching. We're on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, and Instagram. We had about 80 people tune in on Twitter last week overall, and I think all 80 of those were about live. We're live viewing with us as the show is going on, so y'all are super awesome for that. Y'all please make sure again to like and share, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell on YouTube so you never miss a post. We need about 140 subs to get to the next level of YouTube monetization, but you can take advantage of the first part of the show growing. If you want to leave a super chat or a super thanks over there on YouTube, you can donate directly to the show. No donation is too big or too small. If you want to get at me on social media, you can do that as well at the NFL with AJL. If you want to support the show anyway, anyhow, as always, that QR code in the corner of the screen is every bit of social media and podcast content at the NFL with AJL, hashtag the NFL with AJL. If you can't find me, I promise you're simply not looking hard enough. As always, we're sponsored by Buy and Sell with AJL for all your worldwide professional real estate needs. Whether you're looking to buy a home, sell a home, or invest in real estate, get at them on social media or drop your email down below on the live stream in the comments to get on their exclusive newsletter that really benefits their buyers and sellers, the true headlines of today's real estate market. And also, if you want to take advantage of some AI that they've implemented into the business as well to really benefit their clients. And never forget, we've welcomed on a most recent sponsor here in the show, PrayStation at PrayStation Online. Shout out to the Gilliams for letting me come in and partner with them on this deal. Be sure to use code AJL at checkout. You can see the hat right there in the corner. They can do hoodies, they can do shirts, they can do beanies. I need to get a couple of more things from them because I absolutely love the brand. It is the perfect collab, the perfect brand for gaming and worship. Doesn't have to be specific to Christianity. You can have whatever type of spirituality that you would like to bring forward into this collaboration. The brand is already set. We're not open for bringing new ideas for the brand. We're just a sponsor and a partner here of it. Thankfully, sorry to confuse anybody there if I did. But yeah, y'all make sure to check out at PrayStation Online. Again, it is a fantastic brand. Use code AJL at checkout. Make sure you ask the merchant. We want to keep it a little on the low. We want you to do the work to get in there and support it. Use the code, get the merch, and we'll tell you what you get at checkout for using code AJL at PrayStation online. Back into episode 68 of the NFL with AJL as the Texans signed Danielle Hunter to a 2-year, $49 million deal with $48 million guaranteed. And the defensive depth chart right now for the defensive depth chart right now for the Houston Texans is looking very, very mighty. You got Danielle Hunter at the end. You also just brought in, Danico Autry. You just drafted Will Anderson last year. You got Azeez Al-Shaair, who you bought in here in free agency. Jeff Okudah, who still needs to prove some more. He just came in free agency as well. You've got Jimmy Ward. You've got Jalen Petre. And you've also got Derek Stingley. I think we could be looking at a top 10 offensive line here next season for the Houston Texans because Danielle Hunter has been on an absolute tear in his NFL career. Let's see, I'm trying to find it here. 5 seasons. He was drafted in 2015, so he's played 8 years in the NFL. He's got 5 seasons with double-digit sacks, 16 and a half, 10 and a half, 14 and a half, 14 and a half, 12 and a half. He has given 32 and a half sacks over the last 3 years. He has given 60-ish sacks over the last 5 years, including 2 14 and a half and 1 16 and a half season, a 10 and a half, and a 6 season in there as well in terms of total sacks. And Danielle Hunter is just going to come in here and wreck it. Being next to Will Anderson's game will go to another level because Danielle Hunter is there to support him. He has been fantastic in his NFL career, spending all of his time with the Minnesota Vikings. He's been an all-pro second team once. He's been a Pro Bowler 4 times in the last 5 seasons. First 3 year was not a Pro Bowl at all. Come in Defensive Player of the Year voting a time or 2. And this is just such a good addition for a team in the Houston Texans that is looking to solidify. They're coming off of a big year. DeMeco Ryans just did what he did with tripling the wins, doing it with a rookie quarterback, winning the division, winning a playoff game against a premier AFC team. And now they've got the chance to really do something special with this defensive line. And I just got to say, Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson, that might be the best defensive line duo in the NFL. We know there's a lot of respectable ones out there. We know there's a lot of dogs on the defensive line, whether you're a TJ Watt, whether you're a Bosa, whether you're a Myles Garrett. You have to respect what these two guys are about to bring to the table. We know that Will Anderson was Defensive Rookie of the Year last year for a reason. And I think it's going to be pretty scary with Danielle Hunter, Danico Autry, and Will Anderson back there on the line. And who knows if they possibly have a trade happen at the trade deadline, this could be even more of a scary defense. I mean, you look at what this defense actually was last year, which again, this is going to be a top 10 defensive line incoming for this year. I think for pressures, possible TFLs, for sacks as well, pressure rate. The Texans were 11th in points last year, 14th in yards, 24th in defensive pass yards per game, 6th in defensive rush yards per game. They were 7th in the turnover margin. They were 16th in interceptions, 14th in fumbles, 15th in sacks, and 16th in takeaways. So overall, about a middle of the pack defense. The big ones that you look out there are 11th in points, 14th in yards. Defensive rush yards per game, 6th overall is really good, and bringing in Danielle Hunter is just going to help that. They were good at staying positive in the turnover margin, but again, they were about middle of the pack with all types of turnovers and for sacks as well. And there's plenty of room to improve here for the Houston Texans. Again, they want to continue to build on that. This team came out of nowhere last year, taking the 2nd and 3rd overall pick, shaking up the draft, shaking up the AFC South as we thought that it was the Jacksonville Jaguars to win. That is turning into one of the best one of the best divisions right in front of our eyes. And the Texans know that they have to compete with that. And when you go and you take a look at Danielle Hunter and what he's actually done since he's been in the league in 2015, you even look at the quarterback hurries over the years, very solid. The sacks, like I said, very solid. Quarterback knockdowns. He had 41 pressures last year, 34 pressures the year before. In 2018, he had 38 pressures. 2019, he had 36 pressures. Just a very, very solid guy. Under 5% missed tackle rate every year outside of 2018, since the year 2018. And he was actually 10% on the dot there for a missed tackle rate. And Danielle Hunter, since he's coming to the NFL sack leader since 2015 when Danielle Hunter came in. Number 1, Aaron Donald. Number 2, Khalil Mack. Number 3, TJ Watt. Number 4, Myles Garrett. Number 5, Chandler Jones. Number 6, my boy Cameron Jordan. And number 7, Danielle Hunter with 87.5 sacks only only 6 players since he was drafted almost a decade ago have been better than him since he's in terms of sacking the quarterback since he's come into the NFL. He's got 87.5 sacks. He's trailing again Chandler Jones, Cameron Jordan, Myles Garrett, TJ Watt, Khalil Mack, Aaron Donald. That's pretty good company to be in, if you ask me. He's ahead of Chris Jones by about 12 sacks. He's ahead of Von Miller. He's ahead of Joey Bosa, Matthew Judon, Cameron Hayward, Calais Campbell. This again, just since 2015. So ahead of a good bit of names here. And that just shows what he's been capable of since he's been in the NFL. When you're up there with those types of names and you're hanging around those types of names in this conversation, you can do nothing but give respect to the fact that Danielle Hunter is going to make this defensive line one of the toughest to go up against. They're going to have pressure on the quarterback's ass. They're going to be able to stop the run well like they did last year. That's going to relieve pressure on the back end, like guys like Jimmy Ward and Derek Stingley and Jalen Petre even be able to break out even more. And the competition from this team in the AFC South is going to be something to watch for years to come. The Miami Dolphins pick up a couple of players in free agency that I thought were noteworthy of bringing here on episode 68. Jordan Poyer and Shaq Barrett both signed one-year deals with the Miami Dolphins. Jordan Poyer, 1 year, $2 million. Shaq Barrett, 1 year, $9 million. And the Miami Dolphins have every chance to improve in the defensive categories as well. They were 7th in rush yards per game last year defensively, 15th in pass yards per game, 22nd in points given up, 10th in yards, 14th in the turnover margin at +2, 16th in interceptions, 7th in forced fumbles, 9th in takeaways, 3rd in sacks. But with all that, they turned around and lost Emmanuel Ogbah in free agency. They lost Xavier Howard. They lost Jerome Baker. They lost Christian Wilkins to the Raiders. And so these guys had to go in and pull guys from around the league that have been winners at the tops of their position. Jordan Poyer coming from in the division, Shaq Barrett coming from the former Super Bowl winners in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers over from the NFC South. And you had to replace these guys. I mean, I kind of like Shaq Barrett over Christian Wilkins. I know Christian Wilkins is a good bit younger, but Shaq Barrett at one point had almost 20 sacks in this league. He led the NFL in sacks. Wasn't much before he came in, but that 1 year that he really popped off with the Bucs and they won the Super Bowl, he was a very pivotal part of that defensive line. Of course, Jerome Baker getting supplemented there. Xavier Howard. I like Jordan Poyer over Xavier Howard. We know that X Howard has fallen off, tremendously over the last few years. We also know there's been injuries involved with him as well. But Jordan Poyer is one of the well-respected NFL safeties. And we saw when he was healthy with almost said the Chicago Bulls, Lord have mercy, with the Buffalo Bills, him and Micah Hyde were one of the best safety tandems in the NFL. And it really helped Buffalo. We saw Buffalo's defense be at some of the heights over the last few years of that franchise because of guys like Jordan Poyer, because of guys like Micah Hyde, because of guys like Trey White. And we know that, most of those guys aren't there anymore, especially with Trey White and, with Jordan Poyer as we're talking about here. You take a look at, Jordan over the years, came into the league in 2013, played with the Browns some, been with the Buffalo Bills ever since the 2017 year, played a stint with the Philadelphia Eagles as well. But Jordan Poyer, 4 picks, no picks last year. We know he, didn't really play his best, but he was available and he did provide for the Buffalo Bills. 4 picks in 2022, 5 picks the year before that, 2 picks the year before that. So, more times than not in a season, he's coming up with multiple turnovers. He's coming up with plays to make on the football. Forced fumble this year, another forced fumble last year. He's not going to be much. That's right here. Here we go. I don't think it's here. I swore I saw it here earlier too. Either way, Jordan Poyer is one of the best safeties in the NFL. And like I said, Shaq Barrett coming in too. Shaq Barrett has been very solid ever since being in the league in 2015 with Denver for the first 4 years and then with Tampa Bay ever since. We know he got the big contract back in 2019 as well after he got those 19.5 sacks. Had more sacks in that 2019 year than he did in any other season, although he, did miss. He wasn't a big time starter. I mean, Shaq Barrett started, 15 games over the course of 4 years, looks like. And, At 23, 24, 25. And then when he finally got to Tampa in 2019, they moved him to that right outside linebacker. Boom, 19 and a half sacks, 19 tackles for loss, 58 combined tackles, 37 quarterback hits. I mean, the amount of damage. And again, I know we're talking about quite a few years back because he hasn't been much since you go back and look after that, after the 19 and a half season, 8, 10, 3, 4.5 in terms of sacks. So it took him about 3 years in terms of sacks to amount to that 19 and a half that he got. But he is very reputable for pressuring the quarterback as well. 19 pressures last year, 16 pressures the year before. In those 3 big time years, 2019 he had 51, 2020 he had 42, 2021 he had 39. And I hated to see Shaq. Well, first of all, as a Saints fan, I'm happy to see him go out of the division because he was always a pest, and the Saints always had to make a game plan for Shaq Barrett because that's just, I mean, that's what Shaq required. I mean, he's gonna come in and be a game wrecker. No doubt. He's going to come in and be a game wrecker. He's going to be a hellraiser. He's going to be a playmaker, and guys are going to have to watch out for him. So I thought the Dolphins made 2 really nice pickups here as they bring in Jordan Poyer and Shaq Barrett in total on a 1-year deal. $11 million on the deals between the two of them, 2 for Jordan and 9 for Shaq. Just contributors, man, at the end of the day. I'm not saying they're going to be elite. I'm not saying that, I still think Jordan Poyer could be at the tops of his position. And if the Dolphins can utilize Shaq Barrett, right, considering how their defense was last year with 7th in fumbles, 9th in takeaways, 3rd in sacks, 10th in yards, 7th in defensive rush yards per game. They're going to improve in those areas, and it's going to be nice to see these 2 guys be able to contribute. Patrick Queen to the Steelers on a 3-year, $41 million deal. We know that the Ravens couldn't pay Roquan Smith and Patrick Queen as things were unfolding. In free agency, they had some decisions to make, some cuts to make, and unfortunately, Patrick Queen was the one. Formerly playing for LSU, then drafted by the Ravens, is now a Pittsburgh Steeler, and this is just a perfect Pittsburgh Steelers pickup after losing Patrick Peterson. I think Patrick Queen's just going to absolutely raise hell for this defense. We know he's a sideline-to-sideline guy. He can come in and provide sacks. He can be in pass coverage. He can be a hard hitter. He is really an all-around mostly do it all running back, linebacker. And I mean, who better than the Steelers to go out and pick up a guy like this? Because now you're looking at TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, Patrick Queen, Dante Jackson, Minkah Fitzpatrick, Joey Porter Jr., Trenton Simpson still has the chance to break out in year 2, who I thought was the best linebacker or one of the best linebackers in last year's draft. Of course, Jack Campbell came off the board first, but Trenton Simpson getting that chance to learn from Patrick Queen. He already has that exposure with TJ Watt as well. It's just more knowledge that he can soak up and become a better player. Patrick Queen was a first-round pick for the Ravens. He didn't miss a game in 4 seasons in Baltimore, something that cannot be slighted by the Steelers. You got to be healthy. We've seen TJ Watt in recent memories. We've seen Cam Hayward in recent memories not be able to be the healthiest. And when you have key pieces like that, this will help with Patrick Queen coming in and having that, major availability. And the Steelers, again, they had numerous injuries at inside linebacker in 2023. So this is going to really help be able to curtail that. Over the past 2 seasons, Patrick Queen recorded 8.5 sacks, 48 quarterback pressures, both of which ranked 2nd in the league amongst inside linebackers. Over that span, 2nd team All-Pro this year. He's coming off a season that saw him record a career high 133 tackles. So he's going to get to the ball. He's able to track that running back, that tight end, that possible wide receiver. You probably don't want to see him in coverage tremendously. Now, he is a fast guy, but with the way that pass catchers are in today's NFL, he could be outmatched a little bit. But I still think he's able to hold his own. 18 quarterback pressures, 3.5 sacks, 6 pass breakups, 1 pick, 1 forced fumble, and a fumble recovery. He also had 9 tackles for loss and 6 quarterback hits as well. This defensive depth chart for the Pittsburgh Steelers is really, really just continuing to improve. And now Russell Wilson's got a great defense behind him. He's got Minkah Fitzpatrick. He's got Joey Porter Jr. They landed Patrick Queen. They've got TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith. Is it Cameron Hayward that I'm thinking about? I don't know why. Yes. I don't know why I'm confusing him with Cam Sutton. Now we know Cameron Hayward's getting a little bit older as well, but he's still a guy that can produce at a high level, and he's going to continue to do that. For 16 games, speaking of Trenton Simpson a little bit, 16 games, Trenton Simpson played a combined 20 snaps on defense. His primary role in year 1, he was on special teams where he took 237 snaps from that position. And Patrick Queen, again, just a super good pickup here for the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's a vintage smash mouth, like in your face defensive move. And it's not going to get any easier to play these guys at home, away. You're already circling your game for this Pittsburgh Steelers defense. And now they just added that much more emphasis onto the team. Calvin Ridley Calvin Ridley to the Tennessee Titans on a 4-year, $92 million deal, $50 million guaranteed. And the whole story out about this right now is the Titans didn't want to pay AJ Brown 4 years and $100 million, so they traded him during the NFL draft at just 24 years old for a first and a third round pick. But then they turn around and pay Calvin Ridley, who is 5 years older, at 29. He's going to turn actually 30 this season while you're rendering the first year of his services. This was under the previous GM, for the record, with the Tennessee Titans. There was a reason that previous GM was booted out, and they brought in the new front office staff. They brought in the new general manager to make sure that didn't happen again. Calvin Ridley is a very good receiver. AJ Brown, I think we would all sit here and say, is a better receiver than Calvin Ridley. And there's nothing wrong with saying that, but the production of AJ Brown has been immense, at least at today's point in the NFL, because we saw 2 whole years with no Calvin Ridley because of the gambling suspension. Again, he came back season-long 2022 suspension for violating the NFL's gambling policy, but in his first year and unfortunately only year with Trevor Lawrence, he caught 70 passes for 1,016 yards, 8 touchdowns for the Jags in 2023. And again, that was after almost not playing for 2 years, 23 months technically. So the Titans have now went from no consistently good pass catchers / pass catching production. Now they have DeAndre Hopkins. Now they have Calvin Ridley. And they struggled really to find wide receivers after that A.J. Brown trade until DeAndre Hopkins came in. The Titans have had just 5 1,000-yard receivers in the last 10 years. They've had some close ones, like with Corey Davis coming up and at the tight end position as well, with, maybe 800 or 900 yards receiving on the year. And it's not to say that they didn't have a solid passing attack or explosive plays or a very solid offense at the time. The year that they went to the NFC Championship, they were an explosive offense. They were up there in terms of yards per play. Ryan Tannehill and Derrick Henry and A.J. Brown and Mike Vrabel and Arthur Smith were making things happen. And now Will Levis will have these guys at his disposal. The passing offenses over the last few years have been okay for Tennessee ever since that AFC Championship year. Really, a couple years after that, they were able to stay in that hot bubble. What we've seen it cool down. Ryan Tannehill lost his magic. They're drafting Malik Willis. They're drafting Will Levis. Really wondering, dealing with a lot of injuries. I think they had over 90 different starting lineups in the year that Mike Vrabel, was able to secure the 1 seed for the Titans, which is just really crazy to think about, because whenever the injury bug gets you, you're going to be down and sometimes you're out. But now Will Levis has, in year 2, Tony Pollard, Calvin Ridley, DeAndre Hopkins, Tyjae Spears. The Titans brought in Brian Callahan as the head coach bringing in Brian Callahan, who was the offensive coordinator for the Cincinnati Bengals. And, it's definitely possible for Calvin Ridley to have a 1,000-yard season here, have the type of production that he did in Atlanta when he was playing so solid. And then, the Jaguars go in, scoop him up for, I think it was a 6th round pick, if I'm not mistaken. What's up, Wesley? Tuning in for the Calvin Ridley news. Yeah, man, y'all got him on a big pickup, $50 million guaranteed, not too much. The guaranteed money and how they spread the money out over the years is really what you want to be curious about when it comes to dissecting these these moves and everything. But Will Levis having some nice weapons now in year 2. Tony Pollard, he's shown that he can be the running back 1 and definitely a solid running back 2. Calvin Ridley, we saw what he did in Atlanta. You see what he's capable of over in Jacksonville. DeAndre Hopkins, he was very good in year 1, over 1,000 yards. Tyjae Spears, a running back that I really wanted in the NFL draft, and then the Titans go and scoop him up. Now, again, of course, you have Tony Pollard as well. Very good head coaching situation, or it's believed to be a very good head coaching situation. So let's not stay caught up on the whole fact that the Titans didn't want to pay AJ Brown the 4 years for $100 million. That was under a different GM. Yes, they're paying a guy who's going to turn 30 years old this year, a slightly smaller deal, but essentially still the same, just $2 million less a year. Don't know if the specifics, actually iron out like that, but Calvin Ridley is going to be pretty solid in this offense, I think, if Will Levis is able to make use of him and, he's able to get schemed up correctly. If Calvin Ridley, is able to be schemed up correctly I think he'll have a very solid season. First time in franchise history to have two 1,000-yard receivers. Yeah, I was just thinking that too. I think it could definitely be one of those situations to where, like, they could do that. They really could do that. They could go in and have that season to where they've got two 1,000-yard receivers. And anytime that you're like that, your offense is always going to be on top of things. Your offense is going to be one of the best in the NFL to compete with. So Calvin Ridley to the Titans here. Again, I think it's a solid move. Maybe I would have liked him to go to other places, but the deal is done, and it's going to be interesting to see how things play out as the season goes on and he works out this 4-year, $92 million deal. We are now entering the Who Dat Corner on episode 68 of the NFL with AJL, where we bring you weekly, sometimes multiple times a week, New Orleans Saints updates, and it's all free agency here. The Saints are to release Michael Thomas soon. Some places already say he's a free agent. Other teams, like maybe the Chiefs or the Dolphins, are having interest in signing him. He could have a market, right? But it's time. And I understood the Saints gave him, the first 2 years after his injury to rehab when he rolled his ankle on Alvin Kamara in the season opener against the Bucs. The year after he had the 149 catches, 1,700 yards. Michael Thomas was injury riddled ever since after that. And I don't think people realize that in that final game of the season against Tennessee, when he got the record 149 catches, he broke his hand in that game as well, suffered a high ankle sprain the first game next season. And it was just tough to see Michael Thomas go out this way, to see Michael Thomas actually lack this production because, again, I got 41 and 9 on my jersey on my wall right now. I almost bought 13, but I didn't like Kamara better as a player. I'm honestly glad that I didn't at the time. But Michael Thomas, for the 3-4 years he was really on top of things, he did great, but over the last 4 seasons, he has not played a lot of football games. And we don't even sit here and iron out the specifics because we know Michael Thomas has been making his money. Michael Thomas got paid that big deal and then just never showed back up. But after year 3, I would have dropped him. Or, really after year 2 and staying hurt, I would have dropped him. 2020 and then through 2021, he was pretty hurt. So, maybe they wanted to let him just really be able to rest. Dang, he didn't get the 2021 season because of what happened in 2020. So we'll let him rest. But year 3, would have let him go. Then you brought him back for year 4. I mean, we're talking about 5 years, 5 years now since Michael Thomas has done what he did with the record-setting season. And I was just pissed that any amount of money was actually committed to him. I love, respect, appreciate what Michael Thomas did for us, did for the city of New Orleans. But if you can't stay healthy, nor if you can stay off Twitter and just causing hell in this locker room, in this franchise at times with CJ Gardner-Johnson, with trying to say that the Saints are ruining whatever you're trying to do, things just didn't work out well for you, man. And we know that Drew Brees was really a guy that put you in a good part of your career. You helped Drew Brees out as well. There's no question about that. But if you can't stay healthy, man, again, I didn't like when the money was committed last season. Farewell to Michael Thomas. I hope he can go somewhere and compete for the Super Bowl. I hope, if he gets healthy again and tears the league up again for 1,400 yards, that's great. Don't think it's likely, but if he does, I'm happy for him. I hope Michael Thomas can go on and win one. He should have had one. Obviously, we know about the no call. Jameis Winston signs a 1-year deal with the Cleveland Browns, and Nathan Peterman is in as the New Orleans Saints backup. Let's start with the Jameis Winston departure. I hate to see him go. I wasn't the biggest fan of his quarterback play outside of the 5 wins that he had with Sean Payton before he tore his ACL that year. And, people say the Saints did him dirty with the quarterback job, but Jameis Winston's starting days are done. I mean, they really are. Jameis Winston was moved off of by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for a reason. You replaced one player, which is the most important one in the sport, and they won a Super Bowl, which tells you right there that Jameis Winston was the problem. Jameis Winston was not able to propel that team to a Super Bowl win. And because of that, that's why he lost his job. And that's not being rude to Jameis, but he wasn't it. I get it. Number 1 overall pick, Heisman winner, national championship winner, all that stuff. I get that. But Jameis just was not it. I appreciated what he did here in New Orleans. I thought he was great at the post-game pressers, his jokes, his personality, his videos. Jameis was fun to have here in New Orleans. He really was. We just saw a video the other day of him blessing a friend's wedding, just praying to the Lord, being thankful for everything that has happened. And, that's awesome to see from a guy in the NFL who has to spend a lot of his time disciplining himself and getting his body to the point of where it needs to be. I hate to see Jameis go, but he signs a 1 year, $8 million deal with the Browns. And I just think where the Saints were in caps, in salary cap situations, that was a lot for them to spend on quarterback. But again, I appreciate what Jameis did, and I hope he has a chance to win another starting job in this league. For the sole fact that he played for my team, I hope he has a chance to be one of the better backups in the NFL because he does. I probably would have still liked, maybe Jacoby Brissett or Tyrod Taylor or someone like that in place of him because we know how Jameis can be when the going gets tough. But I hope that Jameis does find like a new part of his career, whether it's with the Browns or possibly another team. But was Nathan Peterman really the best we could do? Not Justin Fields, who just went out there for a 6th-round pick, not Ryan Tannehill, who's still a free agent, not Tyrod Taylor, not Josh Dobbs, who just signed with the Niners, not Jacoby Brissett. No, we're going to take Nathan Peterman. That's who we're going to take. We're going to take Nathan Peterman as our backup. And if you want to know what Nathan Peterman has actually done in this league, he's going to be competing with Jake Haener behind Derek Carr, which I think it should be Jake Haener's job, no doubt, for the backup. Saints sacrificed their 4th-round pick in 2024 to go up and get Jake Haener. Peterman was selected in the 5th round of the 2017 draft by the Bills. He started just 5 games and attempted only 160 passes through 6 years in the NFL. He has a 1-4 record in 5 starts. He's thrown 4 touchdowns and 13 interceptions, and he's been sacked 12 times. He's got more interceptions thrown and sacks taken than touchdown passes thrown. Only 160 passes. I mean, is this Trey Lance? Like, what are we doing here in terms of experience? I mean, really. It's good old New Orleans Saints. Good old New Orleans Saints. And here's the thing, too. This is such a Dennis Allen type of move. I'm trying to find the notes here because it seems like I've lost them. Nope, here it goes. Peterman has familiarity with both quarterbacks coach Andrew Janocko and starting quarterbacks Derek Carr. He spent the last 2 seasons on the Chicago Bears aside Andrew Janocko. Before that, he played with Derek Carr on the Las Vegas Raiders, where he served as the backup from 2018 to 2021. So here goes Dennis Allen again with the buddy system. Whatever you need, pal. Sign here. I don't know what the 1-year deal is. I was not able to see numbers on that just yet, but it's Nathan Peterman. Jake Haener should be the QB2, no question. Yes, there are technically 4 quarterbacks on the roster, but I don't count Taysom as a quarterback since he's such a Swiss Army knife. We really need him to be healthier for other positions. But this was just a head scratcher, a real WTF moment here for the New Orleans Saints. I understand the Saints are cash strapped, but I mean, damn. He signed a 1-year deal. It couldn't be more than for a couple $1 million. But knowing the Saints and how they do contracts and Dennis Allen's buddy system mentality that we've witnessed now going into year 3, which is absolutely horrible, we'll see how it plays out. He's still going to have to work out to actually make the roster and make the cut, which there's a chance that he doesn't, but that was your replacement for Jameis Winston? I get it. Gardner Minshew, $25 million over 2 years. That's a lot of money. But Tyrod Taylor didn't have a big deal. Jacoby Brissett didn't have a big deal. Justin Fields just went for a small draft haul. Again, I wouldn't have want him under Dennis Allen and Derek Carr, but still. We restructured Ryan Ramczyk's deal to save some cap space. The New Orleans Saints save a good bit of cap space with restructuring Ryan Ramczyk. He missed 13 games over the last 3 seasons after missing just 1 game in his first 3 seasons as well. We know he was that first-round draft pick in the legendary 2017 New Orleans Saints draft class. That gave us the likes and the experiences of the Alvin Kamaras and the Ryan Ramczyks and the Marshawn Lattimores and the Michael Thomases from the year before. He was named to the AP All-Pro team for 3 consecutive years, 2018, 2019, 2021. He joined Willie Roaf, Saints legend, as the only Saints tackle to be named AP All-Pro 3 times. Since Ryan Ramczyk joined the team in 2017, the Saints have had the fewest sacks allowed, the second fewest sacks allowed with 169, and that's actually the fewest, in the NFC. And the Saints, they had to do this, right? They had to restructure Ryan Ramczyk. first and foremost, I've hated to see the fall off of Ryan Ramczyk over the last few years because at one point, this guy was the best right tackle in the league. I mean, let's just call it what it is. He was the best right tackle in the NFL. He was the cornerstone of that Saints line. He wasn't getting beat. He wasn't giving up pressures. He wasn't giving up sacks. We gave him the amount of money that he wanted. And now over the last few seasons, especially after last season, we've started to see him fall off. And it's unfortunate, because the knees can really trouble you when you're an offensive lineman, especially in the NFL. But it gives us salary cap relief. Ramczyk's base salary drops to the veteran minimum. The rest of the $6.5 million guaranteed is converted. He can earn a lot of it back in a 2025 escalator. So it's a $6.5 million. It guarantees him $6.5 million with a $1.21 million base salary as incentives this season. He was previously due an unguaranteed base salary of $17 million, which would have led to over $27 million cap hit, counting the prorated portion of his most recent signing bonus. As a result, the Saints will save $14 million in cap space, which is very good. Ryan Ramczyk does turn 30 years old this year, and he's definitely looking to bounce back from a knee issue that cut short his 2023 season, in which he only played 12 games. Shout out to Ramczyk for restructuring that contract. Shout out to the Saints for figuring out a way to help with that cap. I think we are now positive in the cap space, area for the Saints. And I can just hope that Ryan Ramczyk continues to stay healthy. I can just hope that Ryan Ramczyk continues to do the things he's got to do in the offseason to be great to elite in the regular season, because I still think he can be great. Elite might be out of the question. I think he could maybe even still be very good. Great could possibly be out of his realm because of how much time he's missed. We've had to see, unfortunately, the Cesar Ruizes and the Nick Saldivaris of the world. And I know I might not have those positions correct, but the Saints like to bounce around some of their guys, as we saw with the mishandling of Trevor Penning, even though I wasn't really the biggest fan of that. But you guys are probably picking up what I'm putting down. Who want to eat a dub? Whoever plays with Jameis Winston wants to eat a dub, bro. I thought it was a pretty cool celebration. Now, I'm not going to be here raving like that's my quarterback. But at the end of the day, Jameis Winston has his own quirks, man. No doubt. Willie Gay signed a 1-year, $5 million deal with the New Orleans Saints, which was a decent pickup. We get to, we see Zach Bond go to the Eagles. We lost Keenan Ellis last year. Zach Bond, Keenan Ellis, very solid. I appreciated what he did. But now we have a guy next to DeMario who we did extend for 2 years amid the trade rumors, and Pete Warner as well, who came out of Ohio State. Willie Gay actually carried two high 60 PFF grades and two mid-50 PFF grades over his first 4 years in the NFL. Of course, he's a two-time Super Bowl champion, technically, albeit he did miss his first Super Bowl with an injury. But, it feels like a solid pickup with, again, some of those departures over the last couple of seasons. The Saints do have a pretty solid running back room. Demario Davis as consistently an all-pro, consistently one of the best at his position, one of the best free agent signings the Saints have ever had. And, Willie Gay can make plays. He was a strong part of that Chiefs defense over the last 2 years. And the Saints really know how to involve their linebackers. We started to see Zach Bond come around a little bit. We see Caden Ellis. We signed him, and he provides sacks. He provides pressure off the edge. He provides solid defensive play. That's why the Falcons had a time scooping him up. But it's good to bring Willie Gay in, $5 million over 1 year. Has that championship pedigree, has the ability to make plays, and he's going to be a nice compliment to Demario Davis and Pete Warner. Unfortunately, the Saints do lose Isaac Yiadom to the 49ers. And this was a guy that was actually impressing me last year, because after he got picked on in that second half of the Packers game by Jordan Love, this guy tightened up. This guy really tightened up. He was just getting passes bombed on him, not lining up in the correct ways. Any possible way that you could have thought of with Isaac Yiadom early on in the season, and especially in that game where I think Lattimore missed a decent part of the season. Or am I thinking of that correctly? I might not be. So much football in the brain. I run my topic, or not my topics. I run my my information over sometimes. But Yiadom was really, really budding, man. He was solid with ball hawking at times, pass breakups, able to play too physical, but not able to play physical, but not too physical to where he had penalties raining down on him and everything. But the Saints had 3 secondary players in the top 15 players for pass breakups in 2023. Alontae Taylor and Isaac Yiadom were tied for 9th with 14th each. Paulson Adebo was tied for 3rd with 18. And it sucks because, he was really, I wouldn't say a star, but he was a player that was really starting to get his feet under him. He played well in man, did well in zone. And again, after you get cooked the way you do by Jordan Love in the second half of that Packers game where the Saints blew a 17-0 lead in the fourth quarter, razor blades coming out of my mouth as I give that take, the guy really tightened up. He seriously did. I'd like to see us get another corner to supplement his strengths that we did lose with him going to the 49ers. And the Saints signing Chase Young on a fully guaranteed $13 million deal. Now, he's making about the same money as Carl Granderson when we extended him this year, who's been worth every penny, and about the same money as Cam Jordan as well, $13 million a year, fully guaranteed. But I don't know if I like the money for a guy who's got 16 and a half sacks over 4 years. He played 12 games in total over the last 2 seasons before he played the 16 games this year between Washington and the San Francisco 49ers. And unfortunately, he's been caught giving up on plays in the NFL. And that's not something that's going to fly with me as a fan. That's going to fly with any of the fans if we see it on tape, which we did with the Niners, we did with the Washington Commanders. The Saints need pass rush, okay? The Saints really need to get things going with their pass rush, because Cam Jordan only had 2.5 sacks last year. He's kind of fallen off over the last couple of years, but I mean, he's getting old. He's going to retire a Saint. He's early to mid 30s, and we know how that football age acts, especially when you're a guy like a defensive end who is constantly in the wear and tear of the game. It's again, I'm still catching up to how the NFL money makes me feel, because it's just wild to know that a guy who hasn't really produced over the last few years is going to get $13 million guaranteed from us. And maybe it's just a testament of us not signing the best deals, as we can see that we're in salary cap hell. But I don't like the $13 million fully guaranteed. And the news just came out that he's got neck surgery or neck injuries and certain body areas that he needs worked on, and he's going to be sidelined until training camp. All the other teams knew about this. The Saints knew about it before and were actually okay and willing to take things on. I hope that doesn't come back to bite us in the ass, and I will leave it at that there, because we all know what this could possibly turn into, especially with $13 million guaranteed. But I will say he was competing with Nick Bosa and Eric Armstead over in San Francisco for, pass rush reps, production. The Niners pass rush was definitely a unit that was cranking out sacks and production. Fortunately or unfortunately, however you want to look at it, Chase Young finished with 2.5 sacks, 10 tackles, 16 pressures in 9 games in San Francisco. On the season, he tied a career high at the same as his rookie year with 7.5 sacks, added 25 tackles, and 41 pressures between Washington and San Francisco in the 16 games that he did just play in 2023. The Saints now have 3 first-rounders: Cameron Jordan, Chase Young, Peyton Turner, who's been an absolute disappointment, Isaiah Foskey, who's a second-rounder, and Carl Granderson, of course, who is worth every penny after his extension this season. They're definitely investing into the pass rush, and, I mean, rightfully so. They absolutely need to do that, because there needs to be more pass rush availability on this line, more production, more guys that can actually put out that consistent pressure on the quarterback. And now he's going to get a chance to chase Baker Mayfield. He's going to get a chance to chase after Bryce Young. He's going to get a chance to chase after Kirk Cousins. And we're going to need all the pressure on those guys that we can absolutely get. The pass rush was pretty lackluster last season. The Saints had a pass rush win rate of 32nd, which was the second worst in the league. The Cowboys led the league in pass rush win rate with 59%. So we were literally 50% efficient as the best team in the NFL. They had a total of 34 sacks throughout the season, which was tied for 29th. There were some bright spots in the pass rush for the season, like when we beat the Giants, but it was the Giants. And whether it was Daniel Jones for the short time or Tommy Cutlets, who was getting the hell beat out of him behind that offensive line. And like I said, the best pass rusher was Carl Granderson. He's very much earning his 4-year, $52 million contract. There was, kind of some personnel issues on the defensive line this year, and Chase Young gets to come in and supplement that. We totally understand that he's coming off the ACL injury from a few years back, and that did sideline him for his sophomore, campaign. But I think Chase Young can really plug in well here. And, I'm hoping, I mean, he's given props to Dennis Allen. He says that he knows Dennis Allen's going to hold him to a higher standard, bring the best out of him in a player, which is, absolutely great to hear. And he's saying all the right things, right? That's absolutely what you should say. Chase Young says he definitely plans to add a good piece here for the New Orleans Saints. He was kind of getting in some rotational pass rush packages behind Cleveland Farrell when he was over there with the 49ers. And, second overall pick in the 2020 NFL draft. you'll see edges go that high, but when the production that he's had over the last few years are turning out the way that they have, it's going to make you bounce around and be a little bit of a journeyman like Chase Young's been here. At least, 3 teams over the last season and a half, however you want to cut it. We've been in the pass rush market, of course, since last fall. We didn't make any moves at the trade deadline last year, per usual. Finished the 2023 season with, again, ranked 28th in sacks with 34. That was our lowest total since 2016. So now we're starting to pile up the years of not being able to have our season averages and best, and especially in terms of getting after the quarterback. Peyton Turner, first round of 2021, didn't even know who the hell he was. Isaiah Foskey in the second round of 2023. Neither of those guys had a sack last year. Isaiah Foskey was a healthy scratch for most of the year, and Peyton Turner only played in 2 games because of his injury. So, Chase Young is going to add a good bit to this pass rush. I am hoping that the Saints can really, really put him into some majority of the snaps packages. And, if he's caught not giving his effort or if he's not producing well, then they'll adjust after that. But they've got a good talent. They've got solid talent in that front seven between DeMario, Willie Gay, Pete Warner, Chase Young, Cameron Jordan, Carl Granderson, more of Chase Young and Carl Granderson. Like, this is their time to go after it and get it. Of course, it would have been nice to keep Trey Hendrickson, but that did not happen, as again, the New Orleans Saints always love to be in salary cap hell. That was episode 68, an absolutely loaded, packed episode 68 of the NFL with AJL. I appreciate everybody jumping into the show tonight as we chopped up what was basically the first week of NFL free agency, ranking where all the running backs went: Keenan Allen, Justin Fields, Calvin Ridley, the Who Dat Corner. We laid it all out here on the show. Before we get out of here, y'all, please make sure to like and share the stream wherever you're watching. Subscribe on YouTube, like the show, and hit the bell as well so you never miss a post. If you'd like to go and donate directly to the show, to the channel on YouTube, you can drop us a super chat or a super thanks over there, or hit me up on social media if you want to donate directly to the show in another way. That QR code there will give you the every bit of social media and podcast content at the NFL with AJL, hashtag the NFL with AJL. If you can't find me, you're simply not looking hard enough. Shout out to Buy and Sell with AJL and PrayStation Online for being the sponsors of this show. Y'all make sure to hit up their tags that are down low in the description of the live stream so you can partner with both of those brands and take advantage of what we're offering you here exclusively on the NFL with AJL. We'll see you guys on the next episode, episode 69. As always, I love you guys. I need y'all, and I will see y'all